My name is Charles Harrell. I'm a volunteer with the Veterans History Project from the Library of Congress. I'm in Spotsylvania County, Virginia today, March 20th, 2007, interviewing Mr. Stuart Shotwell of the United States Marines.
Right.
Mr. Shotwell, for the record, would you state your full name?
Stuart I. Shotwell.
I?
Mm-hmm.
What is your current address?
8030 Singing Wood Lane, Spotsylvania, Virginia, 22553.
Where were you born, Mr. Shotwell?
Northport, Long Island, New York.
And when were you born?
February 6, 1925.
What branch of service were you in during World War II?
United States Marine Corps.
And were you in G Company?
That's correct.
2nd Marine Regiment?
Mm-hmm. 2nd Battalion.
2nd Marine Division?
Yes.
What was your highest rank during World War II?
Buck Sergeant.
Did you get drafted or enlisted?
Drafted.
Were you drafted in July 1943?
Yes.
And when did they release you?
July 1946.
Did you only serve in World War II?
Yes, that's correct.
What major campaign did you serve in?
Saipan be my major one.
Were you ever a prisoner of war?
No.
Were you ever injured in combat?
No.
Or on duty?
No.
Mr. Shotwell, I'd like to go back in time a little bit and talk about the 1930s, what you could remember.
All right, sure then. Some of my favorite years.
I know you probably can't remember anything in the 20s because you were less than 5.
Right.
But in the 30s, we were going through the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of your father?
James P. Shotwell.
What did he do for a living?
He was a salesman.
Was it in New York?
Yes, mm-hmm. Right in Northport.
What did he sell?
Refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, appliances.
Did he have a store, or was he...
No, he worked for the Long Island Lighting Company.
What was the name of your mother?
Cora Esther Shotwell.
What did she work outside the home?
No, she was a homemaker, but she passed away when I was 11 years old. I think it was 1936.
How'd that happen?
She had colitis. In those days, they didn't know what to do, so it progressively got worse, and eventually they put her in the hospital, and she just passed away.
How much do you remember about her? You have any fond memories?
Yes. Yeah, we had an old Ford car, and she used to take us to the beach once in a while, over to Jones Beach, which was a big beach, but it was on the other side of the island, and a little trip, so it took the whole day, but it was fun to go to the ocean. We lived on the north side, so we had the Long Island Sound, and that's where we did most of our growing up. But going over to the ocean side, it was always a big deal. So we enjoyed that.
Did you have any grandparents that were still living when you were growing up?
Yes, I had both grandparents. I had both grandfathers, one grandmother.
Were they close by?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, after my mother passed away, we used to stay with my father during the week, and then weekends we would stay with my grandmother. And she lived right on the harbor, close to a shipyard. So my childhood was growing up in a shipyard. And we had a lot of fun, learned a lot about small boats, and we didn't own one, but we had a friend who would lend us a sailboat. So we'd go sailing and fishing, and everything was free then. You could dig clams, oysters, whatever. You know, my grandmother would say, "Oh, we're going to have chowder tonight, boys. Go dig me a mess of clams." And you could just go down the beach and dig them. But after World War II, all that property got sold, and people built fences and be yelling at you, "Get off my beach." And so that kind of got to me a little bit. I decided there must be other places that weren't so crowded.
Was your grandparents on your mother's side, were they both alive?
Yes.
What were their names?
My grandfather was Jack Alexander, and my grandmother was Carrie.
What did they do for a living and when you knew them as a kid?
Well, they were both elderly. My grandmother was a housekeeper and good cook, and my grandfather had been a cook on a ferry that used to go from Northport to New York, among other things. I guess basically you might say he was a cook. He cooked for one of they mined a lot of sand around there, and he had a place with another fella that sort of like a little restaurant right down where the mining was, and that closed down, and so they bought a place up in town and lived up there.
So you spent a good amount of time with your parents' family because your mama had passed on.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How about your father's dad?
Now my father's dad, he was, let's see, today I guess you'd call him a farm manager. He took care of this farm that was composed of an orchard and some veggies and things like that, and a rich fella in New York owned it, and my grandfather managed it. Now he lost his wife, his original wife. He took a job with the Waterbury Rope Company in New York. I think the headquarters was in Brooklyn, but it was to manage our rope company in Galveston, Texas. So he took his wife and moved to Galveston, Texas, and she died shortly after that. And then my grandfather remarried and had two stepdaughters. And in 1900 they had that big flood, a tidal wave, and he lost his wife and the two girls. And the only reason my father got saved was his wife had given my father his lunchbox and sent him to the mill. And I guess the storm hit shortly after that, and he couldn't get home and never did find his wife or two girls.
What were their names?
I don't know.
What was your granddaddy's name?
James.
Shotwell?
Yes. I don't know if he had a middle name or not. Sometimes some of the genealogy showed that it might be James G. Shotwell. But I never saw anything but James, and on the death certificate it said James, no middle initial.
Did he come back to New York after that catastrophe?
Yeah, they closed the mill completely. Boy, that's how I got on Long Island. Brought him back to the headquarters there, but I guess they didn't have a job for him, so he got this job out on the island.
At the farm?
Mm-hmm.
Have you been back to this area that you grew up?
Not too recently. I would say it probably must be 10, 15 years.
Had it changed a huge amount?
Oh, terrible.
Is it all city now?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be happy living there.
But when you were growing up, it was happy land.
Oh, you couldn't pick a better place to come up in. Like I said, the swimming was free. You just went down to the big beaches. And if you got hungry, why, the beach plums were growing along the beach. Just go get a handful, and they're juicy, so you didn't kind of hit both for liquid and solid. And you could swim, have a ball, and nobody cared, nobody worried, you know. It was just a good time.
Did you have friends that you used to hang out with on these beaches? And
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who was your best friend growing up?
Probably a fella named Earl Buffett. We went to school here. We even started in kindergarten. And the families, I guess, knew each other a little bit, and the mothers did. And so we went through, you know, kindergarten and all the lower grades right on to high school. Graduated with him.
Did you
Still
join
in touch with him, by the way.
What?
I say I'm still in touch with him, by the way.
Did you join a Boy Scout group or any type of civic
Yeah, I
group?
was in the Boy Scouts for a little while. Yeah. got to be assistant patrol leader.
My son's a Boy Scout. What rank did you finally achieve? Did you become an Eagle Scout?
No, like I say, assistant patrol leader was as far as I got. But it was a good cause. I still enjoy seeing the Boy Scouts and seeing what they do in one thing and another. I disagree with them. The people who want to cut their funding out and stuff, I think that's terrible. But
did your friend you mentioned join too?
mm-hmm. Yeah, there was probably 3 or 4 of us that were sort of like buddies.
Were you a big sports player kid?
Well, I thought it was, but I didn't make all the varsity teams. Of course, in those days, if you're big enough, you played all the sports. You know, you just rotated with the season. But I was good enough to be on the team, and I wasn't a big star, but I could hold my own usually.
Did you do camping also?
Yeah, I did a little camping with the Boy Scouts. Can I tell you a story?
Yes.
We're gonna have this jamboree, and I didn't have a bedroll or one thing or another, so I knew all the other guys would have nice bedrolls. So I thought to myself, I'll get a piece of oilcloth like you spread over a dining room table. Just roll that up and tie it up and put it on and look just like a bedroll. So I went ahead and did that. And nighttime came, we had this little pup tent. I spread that oilcloth out, and I didn't know any difference. So I put the shiny side up. Well, good God, was that cold. I couldn't move. It was so cold. Next night I turned it over and slept on the fuzzy side and let the shiny side down. But that was a cold night, I remember it.
Did you do a lot of hunting or fishing?
A little bit, yeah. Of course, there was more places to hunt than now. I doubt if you can even shoot a gun out there, but we had my grandfather had an old 10-gauge shotgun, and my brother and I found it up in the barn one day, and there was a couple of shells with it. We said, man, we got to do this. So this was an old Damascus barrel, which didn't have a good reputation, but we didn't know it. So we took the shells and sneaked the shotgun out and again took it down to Duck Harbor, which was a isolated area, and pulled the boat up on a beach and took the gun and shells and walked inland and flipped a coin to see who was going to fire it. Well, my older brother, he won, I lost, I had to shoot it. So we put the shell in, I closed my eyes, fired, and my brother started laughing, he was on the side. I was afraid I was going to blow my head off or something, you know. And he said the big smoke ring come out of the end of the barrel, and he said he saw the BBs go out and drop off. The old black powder was so old it was almost spent. But we didn't know the difference. We expected we had a big, powerful gun, you know.
You mentioned your brother. How many children were there?
There were just 2 of us. Matter of fact, that's when I heard about World War II. Was he went to Fort Schuyler, which is Merchant Marine Academy, and he was home for the weekend. And we're in the front room. We'd had our Sunday dinner. And the radio was on, and we were just wasting a little time getting ready for him to leave. And President Roosevelt came on the radio, said they bombed Pearl Harbor and we're at state of war with Germany and Japan. And all service people should report to their base immediately. So we packed my brother up and took him in. And I was a sophomore in high school at that time. At 41. And so the next day, of course, I had to go to school. So the history teacher said, I want each one of you to get up, stand by your desk, give me your name, tell me how long you think the war will last and why. So when it come my turn, I got up and I said, I'm Stu Shotwell, and I think the war will last 2 months. And the teacher says, why, 2 months? I said, sure. I said, it'll take us a month to get over there and a month to lick them. So I wasn't very well informed. 2 years later, I'm in the same war. So that was kind of I often think of that, how far off, I had just no idea we could lick them, you know.
If you had to characterize yourself as a kid, would you consider yourself shy, or sociable, troublemaker? What would you list yourself?
Probably a little on the shy side. I wanted to be social, like dance and all that, but without my mother, I didn't have that feminine input, and so I was a little bit shy. Although, you know, I had my dates and got along all right.
What were you good at school?
Recess. No, like I say, I liked history, social studies, and that type of thing. I would say history was probably my favorite course. Sports, of course, I tried to excel in. I played just about every sport, the major ones.
You're tall today. Were you tall for your age when you were a kid?
Yeah, I was. I forgot what grade it was, but I come back from summer vacation one time, and by God, even my friends didn't recognize me. I just sprouted up one Sunday at a growth spurt, and but the height helped me. I pole vaulted and ran the 440 in track, and played a little bit baseball, but we had a real good pitcher. So you just stood on first base and watched the pitcher and the catcher have an afternoon of throw back and forth, you know. So I decided I'd rather get into some personal sport. So I went in for track, and of course football came along and we played football.
Did your father ever lose his job during the Depression?
No, he did a lot of different things. So like I said, he'd sell full brush and Hoover vacuum cleaner, anything going, he'd get his hands on to sell.
Would you consider your family to be middle class during that time period?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I really never, I guess, knew we were poor. But we didn't, everybody was sort of in the same thing, you know. Nobody had a lot of money except a few. But I consider myself, I never shied away from going to any event or anything because I didn't feel that I was up to it, you know, or didn't have the money to be seen or something.
Were you able to go see movies during the Great Depression?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was a quarter. My father would give us a quarter and we'd go to a movie and have some little soda or something after on a quarter.
For one person?
Yeah.
A quarter?
Yeah.
Did you have electricity in your home?
Yes. We had a radio, but it was a crystal radio. My father would go down, get it going, put some crystals or something in it, but it was a radio. It worked.
What did you listen to on the radio? You had a favorite show?
Well, I don't know if I guess they were all sort of special, but ones like the Green Hornet and there's one come on Sunday night, a musical, Firestone Hour. The devil was that. Two good singers, and I always enjoyed that.
Did you have a favorite teacher that really guided you in it as a young boy?
Well, yeah, there was a teacher. She was a science teacher. And I kind of liked her, and she kind of tried to guide me along a little bit. And it's kind of funny. She said, "You want to help me in after class?" Said she wanted to talk to me. And she said, I'd like you to help me. So I said, yeah, I'd be glad to help you. And she said, the thing I noticed is that on the playground, noontime, and things like that, you're real vocal and you get involved in everything, but when you get in the classroom, you don't say very much. So she said, I'd like you to help me keep a little order in the class, and if you do, the rest of them will follow you. So the whole thing struck me kind of funny, so I was so tickled to be asked to help. I don't know if they ever did anything different, but I was real pleased that she asked me to help her.
What was her name?
Oh, Lord. Ellis, Mrs. Ellis.
How far did you go in school?
I graduated.
You graduated?
Mm-hmm.
When your
then
mother...
I graduated college, too, after the war.
After the war. When your mother died in 1936, did you go through a deep depression of any sort?
Never got over it.
How about your brother?
Same thing, he was my hero.
How many years older was he?
4.
4 years? So you were pretty close in age, and thus you played together a lot.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did.
As the 1930s was going on, Adolf Hitler was starting to take over in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Did you learn about that in school before we got involved in World War II?
Yeah, through the news and one thing and another. I even remember back when the Chinese, Japs went into China. Now, the Chinese were having a rebellion or something over there. And, you get this stuff on the news. And
Which theater did you hear more about, Europe or Japan?
Europe, I think.
Yeah.
Until Pearl Harbor, and then it was both.
We were still in the grips of a Great Depression. Franklin Roosevelt had lots of programs out there to try to get people to work.
Mm-hmm.
Did your brother take advantage of any of those programs, like WPA or CCC?
No, he went into the Merchant Marine. And he became an officer. I think he was first mate. And I guess the Navy rating was lieutenant commander.
But
yeah.
you were too young to go into the military of any sort until
Right.
the war had started.
Have you got all the time, or are you limited?
No, I've got all the time. You tell me the stories you want to tell me.
Yeah, I was in sea school down here in Portsmouth, Virginia. And I had a sergeant over me that we just didn't mix right. And he gave me every crappy detail you could think of. So one day my brother calls up, and he come into Hampton Roads. So he wanted to see if I could come have dinner down the ship with him. So this fellow come down and got a hold of me. He said, "You got a brother, lieutenant commander, that's in the Navy?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, he's in down the Hampton Road, so he wants you to come up the ship." And he said, "Now you take your time." He said, "Matter of fact, if you want to stay overnight, I have a night bag I'll lend you." And I'm looking at this guy that doesn't do anything but give me a hard time and telling me I can take his bag, and everything. And the only difference was evidently when my brother talked to him, it impressed him or something, because, man, from then on, he couldn't do enough for me.
What was the name of your brother?
Sherwood.
Sherwood Shotwell.
Yeah, he had some experiences. Too bad he isn't here. Boy, he could give you some good ones.
Is he still alive?
No, he was 1950, I think he passed.
So he was pretty young.
Yeah, he died when he was 50 or 51, 50, I think it was. Yeah, cancer got him.
Mm. As the the depths of the Great Depression was grabbing our country, Franklin Roosevelt came on the radio with fireside chats. Do you
Yeah,
ever
right.
recall any of those?
Yeah, I'm sure we did. Yeah, we were good Republicans, so.
So you didn't like your parents didn't like Franklin Roosevelt.
Well, they didn't like all the giveaway, like you mentioned, the alphabet program, WPA and PWA and all this and that. They considered that more or less as a handout. They felt everybody should work for what they got, and to just have somebody give you a shovel and pay you $35 a month or whatever they did, they couldn't quite see that philosophy. But it's worked out and still going, so it must not been all wrong.
Did the alphabet soup agencies ever come out and do anything in your neighborhood?
Yeah, yeah, they did. As a matter of fact, I think they built a school, and they had a little sticker you had to put up if you had a business saying you WPA or PWA, whatever it is. Remember, it was a white eagle on a blue background, and the letters would be there. Yeah, they did some good work.
But you didn't get involved with any of that.
No.
Adolf Hitler was taken over in Europe, and he didn't like the Jewish people. Did you know any Jewish people here in America?
Oh yeah, the others in high school, we had some. And I think in general, everybody I think was all right, but there was a dislike for the Jewish people. Not everybody, but it was there.
Did the Jewish people you knew ever talk about what Adolf Hitler was doing?
I'm sure they did. They must have.
But you don't recall it right off the bat.
No, but we had a fellow. There was a store called United Cigar Store, run by a Jewish fellow. And when my mother got sick, it just bankrupted my father, but he kept paying, hanging in. And when he run out completely, the only person in town who would give him any help was this fellow who run the United Cigar Store. And he was willing to lend him money. And I'll never forget it. Years later, the banker thanked my father. He said, "I never thought you'd get out of this, Jim." And but he hung in there, and he kept paying him a little at a time, and he finally paid them all off. But that was a tight time. We used to pay, I think it was 11 cents. We'd put in a milk bottle every night, put it out, and then the milkman would leave another quart of milk. But if he didn't leave you 11 cents, you didn't get your milk. So it was, but to me this was normal.
Did you have any black people live in your neighborhood during the 30s?
Yeah, we had one family. Name was Folk, Artie Folk, and his father was a sort of a chauffeur and a handyman for some people who lived close to my grandmother. And the boy's name was Artie, so he was in school with us. And Artie had a paper route, and when we were down to my grandmother's, we'd see him and be back and forth a little bit.
Was there any racial tensions of any sort?
No, I don't think so.
That area up there did not really have segregation like down here in the South.
No, we were pretty close to, well, not pretty, in those days we weren't close, but the city was close enough that there was more of a melting pot. And I think that type of thing was more accepted than probably in more rural area.
Did you do any traveling as a kid?
Got to Bridgeport, Connecticut. My wife had a cousin who lived over there, so we'd go down to Port Jefferson, which was down the coast a little bit, and they'd take a ferry across to Bridgeport and spend a couple of weeks with the relatives over there and then come home again. But I think that's probably about the longest trip we took.
Did you go down to New York City very often?
No, not too often. We did, when I got in high school, I got to the point where I could get into the city, and I wouldn't say I knew my way around, but I knew a few places to go and get back. So, kind of as I grew up, I got more confident going into the city.
Did you ever go into the ethnic neighborhoods, the ghetto areas of different, the Jewish neighborhood or the Polish neighborhoods?
No, not really.
Not really, not that you recall.
Right.
When the Empire State Building was built in the early and mid 1930s, did you ever go up to that and look
Yeah,
at it?
we went in one day, and my older brother and I went up the top of the Empire State Building. I think they had a restaurant or something up there. And I remember looking out over the city, and yeah, that was quite a thing. That was, like the Twin Towers before that.
How about the Statue of Liberty? And
No, I never went out there. Probably should have, but somehow we never got to go on the Statue of Liberty.
I know Coney Island's out there somewhere. Did you ever go there?
Yeah, when a fellow named Dugan was in high school, he was a big boy. And we went down to Coney Island, big shots. And we come onto this big roller coaster, and we both looked at it. No, we give it a try. Well, that thing vibrated and shook, and Dugan's sitting right next to me, and man, he was bouncing against me. And I looked over at him, and he had his eyes closed, and he was hanging on. So I said, after the ride was over, I said, how'd you like the ride? And he said, well, I said, well, you never opened your eyes. I said, how do you know? He said, well, I looked at you, and your eyes were closed, too. So we were hanging on. That was quite a ride.
Did you go down to that amusement park often, or just a few times?
No, that was the only time I
Only
went.
time. As America started gearing up for war, the war broke out, well, first in China, where all the Japs were raping and pillaging the entire country. But more in the news would be Hitler attacking Poland, and then France, and then ultimately England. What do you recall about that?
Probably most of it. You kept hoping that the news would be good, that the English would get on top of them, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, out everything. But old Monty was holding them in North Africa pretty good. And of course the English suffered Dunkirk, which was bad news. But matter of fact, I watched on history lesson, what's the name of the Englishman?
Churchill.
Churchill. He was a good leader. I mean, he'd come on and keep the people's courage up and one thing and another. And, then, I don't know what I was, but they were making P-40s. There was a couple of aircraft plants on Long Island. And we were in school. It was late afternoon. And boy, there was a heck of a roar. Boom. This plane went down pretty close to the school, and right on this farm my grandfather was managing. So everybody run out of the school. And I forget how I found out. I called somebody, and they said they would take the planes out over the sound and test them. And the wing broke off this plane and threw her into a dive, and the guy never had a chance. It just crashed. And so my brother and I went up to see the wreck, and they had it all cordoned off and wouldn't let you in. But we saw the wreck and the hole it put in the ground, one thing and another.
You mentioned to me where you were at Pearl Harbor when you heard the news of Pearl Harbor. Did you know anybody in your neighborhood or friends who were slightly older than you that decided they wanted to get into the war as quickly as possible?
Yeah, there was a relative lived next door. I don't know just what the connection was. But in her line, there was a young guy, I would say he was probably in his 20s. He volunteered, he went right in, and there was 2 or 3 others that went right in. Most of them went in the Navy, but that was because of the water. And they were anxious to go, and everybody was all for them. So there was a good spirit to corps there.
Did you ever feel like you wanted to go before you were
I
18?
couldn't wait to go. I think that's why I said 2 months, because I was afraid it would be over before I had a chance to get in. But yeah, I wanted to go bad. Matter of fact, after we passed the physical, like, you go into this big room and they had 3 lines. One for the Army, one for the Navy, and then sort of a short line for the Marine Corps. And I went through the physical, one thing, and I come out, so I got in the Navy line. I figured I know small boats and the water and one thing and another, so I'd probably make out better in the Navy. So I'm standing there, and this Marine comes over and takes me by the arm, says, "Come here, I want to talk to you." So I go with him, and he said, "Now look," he said, "the Army's got a big long line, Navy has a big long line." He says, "We need some good men now," he said, "and you're the type of man the Marines are looking for." And he gave me a little BS story on why I should join the Marines. And while he was talking, I had a mental flash at how I might look in a pair of bell-bottom trousers with my long legs, so it looked like the Holland Tunnel. And so I decided he was probably right. I joined the Marines. And I figured if I had to fight, they had a good reputation for giving you the best training. And if I was going to fight, I figured I would want the best training.
Did you have a choice?
Yeah, we could have joined whatever group we
Either one
wanted.
of those, huh?
Mm-hmm.
There was no Air Force line?
No, the Air Force was part of Army or Navy. The Marines had an Air Force too, and it was later on that they combined them into an Air Force of their own.
You're enlisted in 1943, but that's down the road. The first year or so of the war, you're still in school.
Right. Like I said, when it started, I was a sophomore.
Was there any soldiers who came back that were wounded that you saw as a kid before you went in?
Well, we got the ones that got killed. You know, they had a silver star you put up in the window if you had a relative in the service. And so we knew if the star come down or something, why somebody got killed, we knew that. I don't remember any wounded people particularly, although there were plenty of them.
Well, during that first year or so of war, did you do anything as a kid to help the war effort in any way?
Well, in school, I took a course they call a pre-flight. It was sort of the physics of flying, and they put up an obstacle course like at school, and we all had to do that. So I'd be training on that. I like that. But I didn't get a chance to make any bandages or things like that, although my wife did.
How about the scrap metal drives and the
Oh,
rubber
yeah.
drives? Did
Yeah,
you participate in that?
We had scrap metal drives for sure. And Victory Garden, we all had a garden.
What did you raise in a garden like that?
You know, carrots, beets, lettuce, peas, beans, just about anything.
Did you help support the war by donating any of your money?
Yeah, there was always, there wasn't much money, but there was collections for different things, and they'd have a little jar by the cash register sometimes. So that was when somebody in the area got hurt or something, they'd have a collection can out there for them.
How about the bonds, the savings bonds? Did you buy any of those while you were a kid?
Matter of fact, we just cashed some in here. Well, it don't seem like it's a few years ago, but it don't seem like too long ago. Yeah, some of that, and they had like 40-year maturities on them. 40 years. Yeah. So we saved them, and
How much did you have to buy a 40-year bond for?
I think it was $18.
And what did you get out of it after 40 years? Did it double or more?
It probably doubled, all right. But the interest was small. Because in those days, you know, you just didn't get much interest in one thing or another. You had to have big bucks to make anything.
So you just sold those bonds recently then?
Turned them in. A few years ago, they come due and matured.
How about rationing? Did rationing affect your family any?
Oh yeah, we had everything was, not everything, but mainly the things you use, like gas and the cooking vegetables and sugar, coffee. A lot of that stuff was rationed. They had little stamps they'd give you. And you had a little book that you'd have stamps for coffee and stamps for this or that, and when you, the clock, you'd take your ration stamps with you, and whenever you got gas or something, if you didn't have a stamp, you didn't get gas, or whatever it was. So that was a big part of the war effort, was the rationing.
Was there any time that you couldn't go somewhere when you wanted to, that you just didn't have the gas?
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Were you driving before you enlisted?
Trying to think. I think I probably was. Yeah, I probably got my driver's license when I was in high school.
You're right there on Long Island Sound. I mean, the German subs are right off the coast.
Yeah, they were. They put some fellows ashore there one time. They had we had a Coast Guard station, and they would patrol it on horseback. And you could go down there and you'd see a guy riding along on his horse. And yeah, that was always a big concern. We had a large group of the German Bund in town. Matter of fact, one of the butchers was taken away. He was one of the head ones in that area. And everybody liked him. He was the butcher, and everybody got their meat there, you know. But you could see, you went down to Asheroken Beach, there's a big bluff, and once in a while a ship get torpedoed out there.
Could you actually see it explode?
Yeah, well, you could see the smoke. It was so far out, you just see the smoke. But you knew something happened. And the Coast Guard would patrol the beach there, and yeah, we used to go down there a lot to see what we could see. But with never any fear, like my older brother going in a merchant marine, which never thought that somebody'd be torpedoing you, you know. But he did. He saved a lot of people, and he was on the first ship into Casablanca, and he was at Utah Beach in Normandy, and he got a written sort of a proclamation from the Welsh government. He saved a bunch of fellas during the invasion that had been hit, and they were in the water, but it was cloudy. And they could hear him yelling for help, But the captain didn't want to stop the ship, so my brother said he'd go, and nobody wanted to go in a small boat to look for him because it was so foggy you can't find your ship to come back. So my brother had him lower a small boat, and he took it out and he rescued a number of these Welshmen. And the ship he was on was the Lucy something. And after they got back with those Welshmen, turned them off, they had a big party, give them the key to the town, renamed the ship the Lucky Lucy.
So he was sort of like your hero.
Oh yeah.
Did he write you a lot while he was gone?
No, the only time we got together would be like if we happened to be home at the same time or something like that, which was only once or twice that happened. And he got hurt. The ship was dive bombed, and they were carrying some type of gas in drums, and they were going to try to evacuate. And as he ran by the hatch, he noticed this guy laying down in the hatch on the floor. So he went down to get him. And when he came up, whatever this gas was burned the inside of his esophagus and his throat and one thing and another. So he had to go to the hospital and have that taken care of.
That was during the war then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I say, like I was a Marine, and he saw tons of action compared with what I saw. But it must have been a good Lord. But things would happen like going to sea school, that held me back from getting an immediate action. Then being with the Admiral, it held me back a little longer. So by the time I was released to go overseas, it was 1944.
In 1943, you enlist and you get drafted and you join the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that story. Where did they first send you when you joined the Marines?
Paris Island. Boy, that's another story.
Did they release you for any time to go back home after when you signed up versus when you
Yeah,
quit?
we had, when you signed up, you got 10 days to go home and straighten your business out and go to wherever you were going.
What'd your dad think about you joining the Marines?
Not much. He didn't care for it. I remember he said nothing but cannon fodder. But I wanted to fight. I wanted to be a big shot, you know, and so anyway, I joined the Marines, and I got fighting right off the bat, right there at Paris Island.
Tell me about Paris Island for you.
Oh, it was rough.
Was it summer?
Well, I wasn't used to being ordered around, and that led to a few problems. But we did a lot of marching and obstacle courses. They wanted something done that nobody wanted to do, like clean the latrines or something like that. They march us out in the swamp in the middle of the night with nothing on but your shorts. And you have to stand at attention there. And the mosquitoes, man, they come from them big ones. And first you're trying to get up your nostrils, in your ears, in your eyes, you know. And as soon as you moved or went to swat one of them or something, you got called out and you'd be put in this detachment wherever they're going to go, see? And then after they got the number of men they wanted, they'd march us back to the barracks, and we had to sing the Marine Corps hymn all the way back. And oh, that was, and everything was double time. You had to run everywhere. You couldn't walk. You had to double time it. And of course we learned a lot too. The drilling and marching, of course, was all new to us. And then we went through all the small arms. We could fire every small arms the Marine Corps had. And bayonet practice, how to throw a hand grenade, obstacle course. But I liked the obstacle course.
Was there a particular weapon that you were better with than others?
Well, I majored in the rifle. And I got great respect for that M1. It's best rifle they ever made as far as I was concerned. But you know, you started off on a 200-yard line. First of all, you had, the first week was all dry firing. And that means you just go through the motions. We'd strip the rifle down, put it back together. And this is day after day for a week. And they had 4 positions of prone, kneeling, sitting, and offhand. And the last week you got ammunition and you started live firing. Well, the 200-yard line was all right, and the 300 wasn't too bad. But when you get back to the 500-yard line, that target, which is probably 4 or 5 foot high and just as broad, looked like your thumbnail. You could hardly find the damn thing, and all these targets are lined up one right alongside of each other. You didn't know if you're firing on your own target or not, you know? But by that time we were pretty used to it. And they had marksman, sharpshooter, expert. And the last day or so you started shooting for score. And then you got switched around. And when the targets are in what they call the pits. And it's kind of like a window. Your target would go up, and they'd get fire, and then the target would come down. And then you had to put a new target on it for the next one, put it up. So you spend a week shooting and a week in the pits. Just kind of rotate it. Man, if somebody misses, if they fire and nothing hits your target, you had a red flag on a pole, and you just wave that in front of your target to identify that there was a miss. And they call that Maggie's drawers. Wave the Maggie's drawers.
How was food in boot camp?
It was all right. We ate it, but I'll never forget. Of course, when you're new to the Marine Corps, things seem different. And we go down to this large mess hall, and I think one of the first meals I had was fish. And I'm not a big fish eater, but anyway, I was convinced that that fish had some type of super vitamins in it to make us bigger or stronger or something, because it tastes so lousy. I figured it must be some special vitamin they got in there for us. But in general, well, I don't know what to say on the food, because I got so dry, because this was in August, so dry, if you spit, it was like a cotton ball would come out. There was no water to it at all. It just, and all you wanted was get something to drink. So it was time to eat. Boy, you'd go for the pitcher of lemonade or whatever it was, you know, and eat what you could in between, but I was drinking all the time. And down on Paris Island, the fountains had a sulfur smell to them. And it smelled like you were drinking out of the toilet bowl. That was hard to take. But then we had.
Had you visited Paris Island since?
Yes, we did. We did. I didn't get to see what I wanted. My wife and I was down to Hilton Head. I had colon cancer, and when I got healed up as much as I was going to heal up, they decided, well, take a trip or something, and you got to get used to putting this stuff on. So we went down to Hilton Head, where one of our daughters and her family had rented a unit, but they couldn't go like till Tuesday. So my wife and I said, well, we'll go down Saturday. You could get in Saturday, so we could go down Saturday and Sunday and Monday, and then they were coming Tuesday, so that worked out great. And Paris Island is right next to Hilton Head. I said, man, I'd love to drive down on Paris Island. And when I was there, you couldn't get to Paris Island on any type of road. You had to take a ferry, well, it was a big barge. And so going over on the barge, I used to have a big wave before my hair got thin. And I remember there was a barge coming in with fellas that had graduated and we were going out. And I remember these guys yelling over, "You'll be sorry, you'll be sorry." And we heard that for a while. But we didn't, we tried to get in, but we couldn't get good directions. And so we more or less just drove around it. I didn't get to see anything I thought I'd recognize. Probably anything I'd recognize wouldn't be there anymore. At the old wooden, we had just big wooden shacks. And, you know, we'd sleep in them. And full of sand everywhere. And there wasn't much sand down there. It was all sodded over or something. There was a lot of grass. Hell, I don't think I saw any green grass when I was there.
So it was all sand when you were there. How about the instructors there? Were they fair?
Yeah, they were hard though. For a while there, I had the feeling that if the people on the outside knew this place existed, they wouldn't let it be. But we were going through the process of going from a civilian to a fighting machine. And all that beating up we had to take, and one thing and another was to get you in line and get you doing it right, you know.
Did the leadership down there actually physically hit you?
Oh, I got kicked so hard one time that I actually felt my feet come off the ground. We were marching. Like I say, it was hot. And every once in a while somebody dropped. Well, this fella, 4 or 5 people up from me, passed out and just dropped. And the drill sergeant had told us that if that happened, nobody was to break step. You stayed in the step. So I saw this fella go down, and everybody that went over him, little sand kicked in his face. So I thought to myself, I could just nudge his helmet over and cover his face up by, save him having a lot of sand kicked in his face. So I kept an eye on it, and when we got close to him, I bent down to kick that helmet over his face. I said, man, that guy kicked me in the butt. Man, I come up swinging down again. He said, well, you're supposed to stay in step. So next time I stayed in step.
Where did they send you after being at Paris Island?
That's when I went to sea school.
Where is sea school?
In Portsmouth, Virginia.
What did you learn there?
Well, I knew, in a way it was a piece of cake for me because I knew most of the nautical terms and things connected with the ship. And I was on a riot squad. We had a riot squad. And there's guard duty. You do guard duty all the time. And of course that's when I got put in as Admiral's orderly.
How long did you stay at sea school?
Couldn't have been too long.
Weeks or months?
Yeah, well, no, it would be like maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
Did you have to do paperwork too?
No, not too much. We had the survivors, I think it was the Yorktown, had been hit pretty bad in the Pacific. And they come in and got mingled in with us. And so listen to them, and one thing or another was kind of inspiring. We got put on mess duty one time. And you had to get up 3 o'clock to get the mess set up, one thing and another. So we were pulling along big trays of coffee cups. And there's probably 4 or 5 trays and 2 tiers, and somebody's pulling the cart, and I'm pulling them off the back and setting them on the table, and somebody else come along, set them down on the tables. Well, finally I decided I don't have to pull these things off. I just got to stop and hold it, and the guy will pull the cart right out from under it. So I figured that'd be a little easier. So I'm standing there holding this, and when they come off, I missed the grab, and the thing crashed on the floor. Oh God, get his serial number, get his pay. No, I forget what I had to do for that, but it was something.
Did you lose money? Did they fine you?
No, they were kidding me about that, but I did get some lousy details. They had a waxing machine. The darn thing had a head on it like that. And if you don't know how to tip one of those things, it'll throw you all around the room. So that guy I was telling you about, he puts me on it. And man, I was fighting that thing. I could hardly control it. And somebody else come along and showed me how to tip it and make it go right or left or where I wanted it to. But until I found that out, I was having a rough job with that thing.
As you graduate from C school, you got assigned to an admiral.
Mm-hmm.
Is that directly from C school?
Yeah. I think there was probably 13 of us all together.
Were you on a ship when you were assigned to this admiral?
I'd go with the admiral. I was assigned to the admiral, not a ship, but when he went out to inspect one of the ships, one of the orderlies would go with him, and sometimes 2 or 3 would go. But our headquarters were based in NOB, that's Naval Operating Base in Norfolk, Virginia, and that base had the best gym I ever saw in my life. It was a big gym. It had everything. I learned how to play handball, how to dive, and all the top athletes at the time were in some type of special forces outfit, and they'd be down there. I played baseball with Phil Rizzuto, and the big names of the time, and I loved that. We only had we draw 4-hour shifts. That's all we worked a day would be 4 hours. So if your shift come, in the morning, like say 8 to 12, you'd have all afternoon. Or when we go round the clock, there was always somebody at the admiral's cabin, so nobody could go in and out. And so if you weren't with the admiral some way, you'd be standing guard at his cabin. And they'd have meetings and
Tell me about the admiral. What was his name?
Vice Admiral Bellinger.
Did he have a first name? Do you know?
I don't know what his first name was.
Did you ever call him by anything but admiral?
No, usually just his rank.
What did he call you?
Orderly. They just, if they wanted, they just orderly, get this or get that.
So he really never knew your name either? Or at least he didn't call him?
He probably did, but it wasn't in the protocol of duty or anything.
How often did you speak to him?
Well, you'd get a deal with him probably a couple of times a month. See, there was 13 of us all together. So, and we only worked 4 hours a day.
Can you describe some of the things you did for him?
Well, if he wanted something, like if we'd be having a meeting, and the orderly, I want my briefcase, it's on so-and-so, he'd tell me in the cabin, something like that, so you get him his briefcase. They take dispatch down to the telegraph thing and have the guy send it. So you just run errands for him. But when you left, you had to be another orderly right there at the door. So when there's meetings going on and stuff, you're kind of on standby.
How many orderlies at a time, typically?
Just one.
Just one that's doing the work,
right.
But the other ones are nearby.
Right. And like he didn't have a ship, but he would hold meetings, and he would fly out to a ship.
Did you fly too?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, I heard that there was a plane going up to Philadelphia to drop off some major that had a broken leg. But the plane was going to go on to New York. So when I heard that, I thought, boy, I can go home. So I went to see the Admiral, and he gave me his flight lieutenant there, whoever it was, and he said, yeah, you can go. So I said, good. So that's as far as I thought at the time. So I get there. He had a little, I think it was a Beechcraft, had engine on each wing. And I'm sitting right up with the pilot and listening to the conversation to the base and, you know, how to take off and all this and that. And we get up to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, the airfield is right on the edge of a river. And we're coming down to make this landing. And man, I thought, well, you know, I thought we were going to go right into the wall, but the pilot had better depth perception than I did. And but boy, when we started coming down, I thought we were going to hit right into the wall. So we drop off the major, they get him taken care of. Then we go on to New York. We're landing at New York. I thought it was kind of funny. We taxi up to this hangar, and boy, it's like bedlam in there. Guys are falling over each other, and everybody's running. And so what happened when they saw the Admiral's insignia on the plane? They thought it was an Admiral on board. And when I got off, they ready to throw me out of there. Where's the Admiral? He didn't come.
Did you get to see your dad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I can't remember how he got back. I got picked up by the MPs one time, but I think I went over the hill. Anyway, I got back to the base without getting anybody challenging me. But there was another time we went from the Admiral to Camp Lejeune down here. That's for more infantry training. So then we get the word we're going overseas. So it was Christmas time, and 2 or 3 fellas from New England got me and said, how about we'll all get together and we'll go home for Christmas. So that sounded all right to me. So we take off, and the deal was after we got home, we were all going to meet in Grand Central Station in New York and go back together. And that sounded good. When I showed up, there wasn't anybody there. And I think, criminy, what's happened to these other guys? So anyway, I get on the train. It wasn't too long before here come a couple of MPs. And I thought, damn, I'm in for it now. And sure enough, they wanted to talk to me. They had a little office in the back of the train, and wanted to see my papers. So I said, I don't have any. He said, well, where are you going? What are you doing? So I told him, I said, I'm trying to get back to Camp Lejeune. We're going to go overseas, and I got to get back. And so they looked at each other, and they're the Army guys, they weren't Marines. They said, all right. They said, look, he's going back, let him go. So they fixed me up with some false leave papers to get me by any other MPs that might come, just on the fact that I was going back. Now these other guys got snowed in, and they couldn't get back. So next morning, after I get back there, well, the first thing happened, I went through the gate, and then somebody says, hey, Shotwell, oh, God, somebody found out. Went back, and here's your damn Red Cross bag. They had a little tube of toothpaste, a toothbrush, and a nail, you know. And I didn't get mine, of course, and this guy was yelling for me to come get mine. And I go, boy, that's a relief. So I get by him, and next morning we fall out. Jesus, the captain's mad as hell. He said, we got people in this outfit so damn dumb that they're AWOL, and they write me a note or call me on a telephone and tell me they can't get back due to the snowstorm. He said, I don't know how dumb you can be. He raising hell with these guys standing there. But I got through all right.
You were at Camp Lejeune.
Mm-hmm.
Were you not with the Admiral anymore by that time?
No, that's Admiral's out of it.
Did you ever fly out to a carrier with the Admiral and
Oh, yeah.
land on the aircraft carrier?
Mm-hmm.
That must have been dangerous or at least scary.
It's scary at first. The landing is scary. Yeah, the damn thing looks like the size of a post stamp, you know. And then when you get down, it comes at you so damn fast. But it is scary.
As you went to Camp Lejeune, you had been detached from the Admiral.
Mm-hmm.
Were you preparing to become an infantryman?
Right. Yeah, they had the courses there. They'd have a log across the stream, and you had to walk across this log. Well, there'd be a guy there throwing a quarter stick of dynamite in, so the water would wash it under the bridge just about the time it got under you, you know, and water would go out. Then we had to crawl under machine gun fire, cradle your rifle in your arms, and work with your elbows and your feet to push yourself along so you stay down low. And they had strings like about 2 feet, and they said over those strings is going to be live ammunition, so don't anybody raise up for any reason. And then there was foxholes dug around, and they'd have a charge go off at one place, and you're crawling along, you know, and they over your head. But you stay down, but it's scary. It's good training.
You were able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But here you are getting ready for war.
Yeah.
Were you still feeling invincible?
Yep. Never had any other feeling. No, it's funny, like I say, I come in on the end of it, but there was a lot of caves. That was a coral island. Saipan was coral. And you can't dig a foxhole in coral very well. There's some sand there too, but our foxholes were built up instead of down. But you couldn't tell where, when you heard shooting, you couldn't tell where it came from because there's so damn many cliffs, you know he's in one of them. So what you do is, we had bazookas, you could call headquarters, and stick a bazooka right in the end of the tunnel or the cave you thought he was in, and try again, and if you opened up again, you know you didn't get him. So then you try a couple of hand grenades in the next place you think he is, and then eventually either he gets you or you get him. But that's only one of them, and you go a little further and they had these things called spider traps. And they dig a hole that's big enough for one man, some of them for 2 men. But they had a little roof over it. They'd get down in the hole, lower this roof, and the roof would have like sod on it. And they lay there, and then somebody comes by, they let them get by, and they raise that lid up and look, and if the guy's going on by, they just up and give it to him right in the back. Drop the hatch back down, wait for the next guy. And they were sneaky. It was scary.
How did you get across the country from Camp Lejeune to get on? I guess you went by ship.
No, we went by, from where to where?
From Camp Lejeune, where did you go and how did you get there?
From Camp Lejeune, we went across the southern part of the country. And this part, we were on train, and the curtains were all drawn for security. So you couldn't see anything. So I got pretty far out in the west, and I thought, I'd like to see a jackrabbit. So I'd go in the bathroom, and I'd raise the curtain about a foot, and sit on a hop and look out underneath this curtain and see if I could see a jackrabbit. Well, we got all the way to San Diego, and I never saw a jackrabbit. But San Diego is where we went from Camp Lejeune, and that was Camp Pendleton. And we hiked around in the mountains there for a little while. just keeping us in shape. And then we took a cold ride. I'll never forget that. We're all in the back of these cattle trucks with no cover or anything. We're just open. And cold, it was foggy morning, and the trucks must have been going 60, 70 miles an hour. Felt that way anyway. It was cold as the devil. Anyway, we get down on the dock, and we go aboard this old Hog Islander. Well, the Hog Islander is sort of prior to the Liberty ship. It was an old merchant ship. And we were packed. We were like sardines in that thing. We were sleeping 8 high. On top of it, you were so close to the guy below you and above you that if you got in on your back, you stayed on your back all night. You couldn't turn over. And the darn ship had cockroaches. So you're, again, just sleeping in your shorts, and you feel a cockroach start crawling across your chest, and you just pray you don't go for the head. Oh man, because you can't swat him, you can't get your hands up, you know. This other guy, he's right here. And, oh gosh, we were tight on that ship. It was hot and muggy. Then we got 2 meals a day. We got an orange and a sandwich for breakfast. And then later in the afternoon, we'd have a better meal for dinner. We had to take Adabricin, the pill that keeps you from getting malaria, Adabrine, I guess that was it. And I could swallow a pill without taking water. Some guys couldn't do it. They'd have to get water to take the pill down. But I could take it down without water. And you look out, my favorite thing was get right up in the bow of the ship, and you could see the water splitting off the ship as it went through it. And you could see the whales. And that was really a sight to see, the great big whale. And they take a breath and blow it out through that blowhole they have on top of their head, you know, just like a big fountain out in the middle of the ocean. And
were you with the convoy at this time?
Yeah, and we were slow. I think we finally were left behind. Then we discovered you could take your shirt or your pants and get a little piece of I forget where we got it, but it was about the same size as that. But we could get it in rolls, and get a long roll of it, and run it through the arms of your shirt or the loops of your pants, throw them over the side and drag them for a few minutes and pull them in, and God, it'd be just as clean as a whistle. I never saw the beat of it. So this one guy, he was a good thinker, but he didn't think far enough. He figures if that's good for a shirt or a pair of pants, I can put all my stuff into this mattress cover and get it all done at the same time. So he comes up the bow with me and he wants to throw this thing over. So I said, sure, throw it in there. So he throws her in. Well, when the bag landed, it landed in this big wave from the bow of the ship, just come right down on it, snapped that string like it was nothing. And his clothes all float out to sea. I don't think he ever saw him again. That was the end of his program.
On that trans Pacific float, did you get sick?
No, never got seasick. I was thankful for that because I had a little friend named Sullivan, and we had an old China Marine that was with us, and he was supposed to be salty, and so we weren't too far out, and Sully started getting seasick, so I couldn't help him until he could. So this old sergeant is really yelling at him. What's the matter, Sully? Can't you take it? And, you know, giving him a hard time. Poor Sully, he's over the side, letting it go. So we get out a few little further out and we hit a storm. And the old Sarge gets seasick. So Sully and I are sitting up on him. What's the matter, Sarge? Can't you take it? And he saw heaving his guts out. Oh, boy.
Where did that ship go?
we, see, that happened, we stopped at Pearl Harbor, probably get fuel. And the next stop was Eniwetok. And Eniwetok was fairly close to Saipan, but, you know, hundreds of miles, but it was fairly close. And, well, that was another one. We get in Eniwetok, and the rumor is we're going to have R&R. That sounds great. So they did, but my outfit got the duty of staying aboard ship and cleaning it up while these other guys go play. So that didn't set too good. But when they came back, man, I was happy I didn't go. These guys were beat up, sunburned. Oh, they were a mess. And what happened, they had free beer. And, you know, they get fooling around and get drunk and fell asleep in the shade of a palm tree, a banana tree, or whatever, gave a little shade. Then the sun would move and these guys would be laying there and they got sunburned. Oh man, terrible. And so when they come back, I said, I'll clean the ship up, no problem. I didn't want to get into that. Then another time I got burned was after things died down. The Army was building I think it was a laundry in the mess hall they wanted to build. So I volunteered our outfit to work with them, because that's a lot better than being at the home base all the time and putting up with that. So we go down, we're going to help them build this thing. So we got it pretty well built, but I volunteered to feed a cement mixer. Well, that's like 2 shovels of sand, 1 shovel of cement, but this cement mixer never got tired. Man, I wore out. And that thing cranking away, and I'm trying to give it 2 and 1, 2 and 1. And so anyway, we finally got it up. And then we're going to paint it with creosote to preserve the wood. Well, I'm up painting where the V of the roof is, and I notice I'm starting to get red. So I thought, the sun's kind of getting to me, but I have my t-shirt on, so I said it won't be bad. So I get a little on the brush, you know, you paint up here and the creosote would run down your arm, and I'd take it and wipe it off on my shirt. So pretty soon it's starting to hurt. I go, damn, I better see what's going on here. So I come down and give the brush to somebody else to go to the medical tent. And I had pretty good creosote burns all over my body where I'd been wiping my arm off. I'd never worked with creosote before, but I found out about it then.
Allergic to it?
No, but it just burns you.
How long do you stay at Eniwetok?
Not long. Just a couple of days. We probably took on fuel and.
Had you been trained at amphibious attacks yet?
Oh yeah, yeah. We'd been practicing landings and formations and how to stay in touch with each other. But the jungle, in some places that jungle was so heavy, Charlie, actually I could stand right next to you. You wouldn't know I was there. And stuff would grow overnight. I mean, and so thick and heavy, big leaves. They had...
was this on Saipan you're talking about?
Yeah. Let's see, yeah. They had these big jungle bats. What do we call them? But they're a big bat. You could see them hanging up in a tree like a coconut. And we had land crabs. Boy, at nighttime they sound just like a person crawling through the brush. They probably shot up more crabs than we did anybody else. Yeah, that was...
When you came to Saipan, how late were you getting to Saipan versus the first invasion? How many days had it been?
Between...
When you arrived and the first boats had arrived.
Oh. Well, probably a day or two, because they pulled there was a feint made, a false landing to kind of draw the Japs off from where we were really going to hit. So we really weren't into it probably for a day or two before the initial fellas had worked their way in.
When you came in on Saipan, were you in a Higgins boat? Or a big LST?
No, they didn't call it a Higgins. I know what Higgins boat is.
Or were you on an LVPP?
They had tracks.
Amtrak?
Yeah. And then on the island, on one side was beautiful. Really was. It was a big lagoon, but there was a reef that went out. But inside that reef, it was all nice, pure sand. It was really beautiful. And kind of an azure blue, nice blue-green color. But then there was the reef, so they had to get over the reef, but the tracks could take you over all right. And on the other side of the island, there was cliffs, big, tall cliffs. One there was a place called Marky Point, and the Japs they had a lot of Korean and Manchurian laborers out there working for them. And they told them that you don't want to let the Marines get you because they're bad people. They said in order to get in the Marine Corps to begin with, you got to cut off your mother or father's ears and present them to the enlisting side. That's how ugly you got to be. And they'll torture you. And they had them so scared of us that these people were committing suicide rather than be taken prisoner. And they'd take the women that had babies, take the baby in their arm and jump right off.
Did you see that?
I didn't see it, but I heard about it. And they took in a PA system, and they got a guy that could speak Jap to tell these people that, you know, we're friendly, we're going to give them food, we're going to give them medicine, not to be afraid. But a lot of them actually committed suicide before we even got to them.
Did you hear this PA system? Were you that close?
You could hear them talking. At that time, I didn't understand any Jap anyway, so it didn't make any difference to me.
When you came on the beach on that Amtrak, did you jump overboard on the Amtrak onto the beach, or did you stay inside the vehicle?
I stayed in as long as I could. Then eventually you got to go.
So how did you get out?
Right over the side.
And you jumped out, you're fully armed, ready for combat.
Ready
Who else was with you as part of your combat team?
No, the whole squad.
Do you remember their names? Or some of them?
Boy, mostly nicknames. I got some pictures.
Did you have a nickname?
Did I have one? Yeah, Shot.
Just
Shotwell, they just shortened it up. But there was a young fella from Wisconsin, real blonde hair, call him Chicken. And then there was Whitehead. Oh gosh, I can see the face. When I look at the pictures, I think I should have put their names on it or something. Some of them I did, but I got them in them.
When was the first time you shot your rifle?
Probably the first night, probably in a crab. Well, we were going along on patrol one time, and I guess I had the whole squad with me. And it was supposed to be a silent patrol. All of a sudden, bam, somebody shoots off in the back. Who the hell did that? And so I asked the guy in back of me, I said, send him up, up to me. And he said, it's private so-and-so. He says, what are you going to do, break him? I said, I'll let him go. But he saw one of these jungle bats and shot it.
Were you a sergeant by this time?
No, I was probably corporal then.
Were you leading a squad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have the M1 Grand at this time?
Yeah. Man, I kept my Grand with me all the time. That's the best rifle.
You shot that first night, probably at a crab, you thought.
Yeah.
Did everybody else shoot about the same time you were shooting?
No, you wait. You know, if you get return fire, then you know what to do. But if well, there was one guy that was pretty edgy, and this is funny. This guy is a monster. He played football for Tulane University, and he was built. And we had gotten things pretty well under control. And I was sleeping right opposite him. And all of a sudden I thought I heard his load his rifle. And I said, what the hell is he doing? So I kind of as quiet as I could, I said, what's the problem? And says, one of them's coming out of the boondocks over there. So I look over, and sure enough, here comes a guy in short pants like they wore those loincloths or things, and bald head and semi-bow-legged. It looked just like one. And he says, lay down, lay still. I said, no, don't you pull that damn rifle. So I was right in line with where he was laying and where the guy was walking. So it turned out he walks right into camp with some guy who had to take a leak in the middle of the night. So he just got up and walked in the jungle a little bit and let it go. But I was so scared that this guy was going to try and shoot him right over me and probably hit me in the doings. But he got calmed down. But he was real nervous, and because he was the biggest guy in the outfit, he could have licked anybody. But he didn't hold it too good. But it's scary. I can't say I wasn't scared.
Was there a time that you saw live Japanese?
Yeah. Whenever we'd capture one, of course, you'd come in and the first thing you'd do is disarm them. And that's where I got a lot of this stuff. It was, we just put it in a pile, and then the officers take what they want, and then it gets down to the listed men, and so you more or less can take what you want. Unless you got to carry it from then on.
Was there a time that you knew you shot your weapon and you hit somebody?
No, I really didn't look at it that way. I looked at more at targets. I was shooting targets and not people. No, I wouldn't say I hit anybody that I know of.
Were they far away when you shot them?
They were moving.
Moving?
Running. Because you don't have to lead too much with a rifle. But a moving target's harder than a stationary one. You can't draw a bead on them,
You mentioned that in the jungle they were really close to you.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, well, I don't know how to explain it, but it's so damn thick. We had a lot of jokers. And one time there was a truck going along, and this guy tossed a hand grenade right out of the boonies where we were patrolling into the back of this truck. Now this truck's moving probably, I don't know, 35, 40 miles an hour. So when there's a hand grenade, and it's a Jap hand grenade, lands in a truck, these guys don't know whether to jump out or what to do. And anyway, it was chaos for a while. Nobody got killed, but I thought it was kind of a stupid thing because this truck's moving. But nobody knew who did it. Nobody ever. We knew it wasn't a Jap because the hand grenade was unloaded, no powder or anything. But just when you see it, you know what it is.
Saipan was supposed to be home island for the Japanese.
Yeah,
At
it
least
was
they
it was a
considered.
break through the perimeter. That's one reason they were determined to hold it, because they knew if we got through that, next come their own land, their own soil. And that's one reason they fought so hard. Of course, it's just like these guys in Iraq. If a guy's going to kill himself, there isn't much you can do about it. You know, and they all had that same philosophy, you know, death to the emperor is an honorable thing. And so they fought to the last man.
The famous bonsai charges you hear about when the Japanese fight.
Right.
Did you ever experience a massive attack like that?
I was next to one. They had some little tanks, and there was, all day long there was small groups of them. You'd see like 4 or 5 moving around. And that night, they pulled a banzai, but they were over, it might have been I Company or something, but they were further over on our left. And they had there was a lot of shooting going on, but they finally brought in some of these armored personnel carriers that are sort of like a tank, except they're not as heavily armed, and finished off their tanks. And that ended it, but for a while it was kind of chaotic. But we were pretty secure. We had our line out. And
Did your squad have a flamethrower?
yeah, we could get them. And they did the job. That's another thing, like if you're trying to get the right cave, all you got to do is bring a flamethrower up and start it going. But flamethrower was a marked man, because they knew that what it would do. And so the corpsmen were marked men, flamethrower was a marked man. So they knew if they took a corpsman out, that meant more wounded, and more wounded meant more people to take care of the wounded, and there'd be less to fight. So they try and get a corpsman if they could. And same with the flamethrower, it's a wicked weapon. And so they didn't want anything to do with that. So if they could get one of them.
You mentioned marked men. Were you close enough at any time to see one of our guys get shot?
No, I've seen a lot of wounded. But I don't think I ever saw one. I got put on a burial detail one time. I got dengue fever. So I was getting pretty weak, but we'd take these guys that didn't make it, and they'd have a hole dug and poncho over them. The chaplain say a few words and put them in.
But you never were on the battlefield and bullets shooting your guys next to you or your
No,
squad member?
Not that person that close. No, I don't have any big heroic story other than keep my head down and make the next 100 yards.
Did your line move forward very slowly?
Mm-hmm. And that's just how it was, real slow.
As a squad leader, you would almost feel like it was your duty to keep your men alive. Did anybody in your squad get wounded or shot?
No, we were pretty good. Of course, like I say, we weren't in the front line, but we held pretty tight.
Was there any one moment you thought that you had bought it?
Would it? Yeah, that thought crossed my mind, but I never figured on going. Because you know, when you get these big shells going off, it's nerve-wracking, and the explosions are so damn loud. Of course, we didn't have any earmuffs or ear protection or anything. You just went like you are right now, you know, as far as the ears were concerned. And well, right now my hearing is scarred quite a bit. And the doctor told me there's no use getting a hearing aid. He said, what's died or been killed in there isn't going to come back.
Has that been that way ever since the war?
Yeah. See, when like when you're on a firing range, you're laying right next to a fellow, and you both got M1s, and there might be, 28, 30 fellas all laying in a line and all shooting. Well, yeah, blasting this here and blasting that here and blasting this, one right after the other. And but I don't think they really knew back then that would. I remember one time we were taking gunnery practice off Virginia Beach, and I was at 20 millimeter, but right on over me was a 5-incher. Right under the 5-incher was a pom-pom of 40 caliber, the one with the barrels come back, and then I was under that. So they got an airplane that pulls a big sleeve across, and you try to hit the sleeve. So I couldn't hear I had a sailor for a coach, and I had the habit of not taking the safety off until I was ready to shoot. And I remember my father drilling that into me, don't take your finger off that safety until you're ready to shoot. So we had the load signals was something like half load, load, and fire. I think that's the way it went. And we couldn't hear each other. So finally, he said, I tell you what, he said, I'll tap you on the shoulder when you're supposed to shoot. I said, all right, that'll be fine. So they half load, and here comes the target. I start tracking the target. He taps me on the shoulder to tell me to take my finger off the safety, and I thought the signal was when I felt the tap on the shoulder, I start shooting. So the 5-incher missed it, the 40 missed it. It was right in close, and I opened up before the 40 didn't miss it. I opened up before the 40 even fired, and it sounded like a BB gun. Here you got the 5-incher going, the 40's even heavier than I am, and here comes the 20. Bop, 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 and I cut that damn wire right off. And probably accidental, and the old sleeve curls up and comes down. This is first thing in the morning. Man, everything got quiet, and they come over the speaker. The gun crew of 21 report to the cabin right away, immediately. So the sailor looks at me, and I think, boy, I'm going to get it now. And he says, Christ, you messed it up. And he's yelling at me, and I'm wondering what's going to happen. We go in, and there's probably 4 or 5 officers sitting there. This one guy's really reading me the riot act, and I thought they were going to put me in a brig or something. So finally he said dismissed, and I'm going through the cabin door to get out of there. This officer standing by the door, taps me on the shoulder, he says, good shooting, son. That made me feel a little better. Man, I thought I had that image you spoke of before, this might be it.
Saipan was a coral island. You dug foxholes by building up foxholes.
Right, right.
How was the weather on that island while you were fighting?
Well, it was warm, and it rained every day. But after a while, you didn't bother with it because it was so hot. 5 minutes after you come out of a shower, the sun would dry you off. But thing of it is, we started getting skin problems, and under your arms you'd get, or any place you sweat, you get a rash, and this rash would just continually get worse. So I got it, and the skin kind of shrivels up just like a prune, And so I go up to the corpsman's tent to show him. So in the center of his tent, he's got a cross piece nailed on the center stake. He says, can you chin yourself? I said, yeah. He said, well, see that bar up there. He says, grab a hold of that and chin yourself. So I grabbed a hold of the bar and chinned myself, and just when I get in the up position, he takes 2 wads of cotton and puts them in this pail of blue ointment. I don't know what it was, and boy, he socked it in under my armpits. God, that burned. So whatever it was, it dried up the rash and the irritation and one thing and another. But I remember that.
How about your feet?
No, well, I didn't have trouble with my feet until we left Saipan and started going to Japan.
Before we talk about that, the purpose of taking Saipan was to get an airfield
Right.
on neighboring Tinian, so the big planes can land there and take off.
Right.
Did you see B-29 taking off?
Yeah, matter of fact, so many things go through my mind when you say something like that. We would come off patrol one time, and the Red Cross had a wagon. They'd drive out, give the pilots some lemonade and donuts and whatever. Well, the pilots could get good liquor, probably for a lot less. Well, they weren't charging anything, but they could get real liquor. So they didn't bother with the Red Cross wagon. But once I discovered that thing was there, whenever we come off patrol, I'd cut across the airfield and go to this Red Cross wagon and see what they had. And I remember this one lady, she says, she says, they look so young. We thought we were big, hard guys, you know. And there's this woman, she surprised a bunch of kids out there. But I was going to tell you, I was walking, had left the little Red Cross wagon and was going to walk across the airstrip to get organized on the other side. And here comes this plane. So I look at it and I think he's way out there, no problem. I go a little further and I look again. I said, man, he's getting kind of close. And I'm still like in the middle of the airfield. And pretty soon I'm in a dead run. That thing's coming in. Boy, it just moves so damn fast I could hardly get out of its way, you know. Yeah, and the Enola Gay, I think it left from
Tinian.
Tinian there. It was brought in, I think, on a cruiser, and then they put it on this airplane, and this guy took it over to Japan.
Did you ever go to Tinian while you were over
No.
there? You always on Saipan?
Mm-hmm. There was places on Saipan, I think you could see Tinian. There was another little island out there. They claimed the Japs were still on it. They just cut them off and left them there. And they would go over and photograph it every once in a while. And my buddy Pearson, he was my real buddy. He took a flight over, and next day I was going to, but I didn't for some reason. And the next day, the damn Japs out there took a shot at this plane. I thought, man, I'm not going to take that flight, that's for sure. But they had, I think it was Marco or Marcus, something like that was the name of the island. They weren't going to bother with it, they're just going to cut them off. And
as the war came to a close, the atomic bomb was dropped.
mm-hmm. That's a whole other thing. When that happened, we had moved up to the point that we knew we were getting ready for something, because we were starting to take hikes with full ammunition. The flamethrowers were loaded with fuel. And you don't do this until you're pretty near ready to go. And we're starting to do that. And so the pilots wanted to bet us big odds, 50 to 1, 100 to 1, that the war would be over in a couple of months, or a couple of weeks, whatever. And we can't figure, why the hell are these guys giving us such big odds? Must be something going to happen. But we didn't have the slightest idea what it was. And then one day, we were on patrol, and boy, all the ships in the harbor started blowing their horns and whistles and start to hear a few small arms fire going off, and what the hell's going on? Nobody knew, you know, and then we got the word that the war was over, and everybody was blown off, you know.
Soon after the war's over, you were sent to Nagasaki.
Mm-hmm. That was the next step. And we were the first crew. Well, there was a Captain Shepard, and Captain Shepard knew us from being on Saipan, because you needed 85 points to come home. I only had 83, so I had to go with the occupation troops. But so did the same thing happen to Captain Shepard. So, and 2 or 3 other guys. And we get over there, and he's in charge of seeing where the people are going to have medical attention, where you're going to have mess hall, where you're going to sleep. You know, all these things you need to know before you move the troops up. Well, when that got ready to happen, he'd come get me and these other guys that he knew from Saipan, and we'd go with him. And we'd move up, say a couple of weeks ahead of the rest of them. And we'd be in these little towns and be the only American troops in there. So we had good, anything we wanted, and the mayor of the town usually threw a party for us. And so we had pretty good living there for a while.
In Nagasaki, when you saw the destruction, can you describe it?
Ooh, boy, it's so bad I don't think I can describe it, but the way it impressed me, this Nagasaki is a big valley. It's about, I compared it to Long Island, it's about 120 some odd miles long and probably 18, 20 miles wide. When that bomb went off, it went off a little before it should have. And there was a line right around the mountains. And everything below that line was dead, burned, charred. The only thing you could see was a set of railroad tracks that come right down the middle of the valley. They were still there. There was an old Gothic church, that gray stone, you know, and there was part of that still standing. And then there was the corner of a big building. I don't know whether it was a office building or a hospital or something, but there was just one corner of it. And that's, everything else was burned, charred. Wherever there was a house, if that house had a bathroom, there'd be a toilet and a bathtub, and if they had the same type of sink, they'd be sitting on the ground, no house. But whoever had a bathroom, you could tell, because the bathtub would be out there and the toilet. They didn't get burned. They had big shipyards, and the shipyards had you know, large metal buildings and one thing and another, and it just looked like a big fist had crushed them right to the ground and twisted them and burned them. There wasn't anything. No matter what it was burned. And these big rafters and one thing and another, they just crushed down. So, and people tell me that, you know, these Nordic bombs we're dealing with today are 50 times heavier or 100 times heavier than an atom bomb. I don't see how it's possible. I know it is, but that atom bomb is so powerful. God, it just wiped that thing out. And then all the rumors started. You're all going to be sterile. But we disproved that. We got 5 children of our own, 17 grandchildren. So that disproved that all right. But
had you known anything about radiation?
Didn't know. I don't think the government did.
Did you notice any change in you when you were there? Did you feel it?
I didn't notice a thing. Matter of fact, I'm in that. They put a list out of anybody who had exposure to the atomic business. I guess in case of lawsuits or something. But anyway, my name's on it. And but maybe it could have been because it went off up in the air. But God, the destruction is just unbelievable. And there wasn't anything left.
How long did you stay in Nagasaki?
I don't really remember, but it was probably a couple of months. I went to Kanoya. Kanoya was the southernmost part of Kyushu. And Kyushu is the southernmost island of the Japanese main islands, mainly agricultural. And down in Kanoya, I'll forget these things I'll tell you, but that's where they practiced for Pearl Harbor, because they had a geographical area that was quite similar to Pearl Harbor. So that's where they tried their low torpedoes so they wouldn't go too deep. And all that stuff was just like it was at Pearl Harbor, so they practiced there. And then we went to Nagasaki, Kanoya, went to Nakatsu. Now Nakatsu was kind of like Japanese Miami Beach. They had mud baths, hot water baths, and all that stuff. And we went there. I didn't know anything about a mineral bath, so we go take a mineral bath. And they told us, now when you get in there, don't stay in that water more than, I think it was 20 minutes. Well, it feels so damn good, you know, and oh man, body just eating this good feeling up, so you're playing around and fooling around. I got to get out of the pool. I don't know how long I was in, but I could hardly pull myself up a ladder. I just lost all my strength. But it comes back, but there's something about that mineral water that you stay in it too long, you're going to be in it. But anyway, that was a great stay because it was like a recreation area. Then we went to Beppu. It turned winter then. We had bicycles, had old khaki we had on Saipan, it's cold. At a CB got me a cap and a sweater.
So where did you go when they sent you home?
We left from Sasebo, and the old Halamad Smith, the commanding general of all of it, comes down to the dock, see us off. So he comes down and sees us off, and damned if when we come into Norfolk down here, there's old Halamad Smith. I guess he flew back.
You took a ship across?
Yeah.
All the way through the canal and everything?
Yeah, now that's a good one. We got as far as, there was 2 ships had all the entire division on it, on them. And we got to Pearl Harbor, and in Pearl Harbor, the railroad went on strike here in the United States. We were supposed to go to San Francisco. And I thought, boy, it's good. I'll see the Golden Bridge and all that stuff. I'd never seen any of that. And so then the word come that the railroad's on strike and they can only take 1 ship. So the ship with the most fuel has to go down through the Panama Canal. Well, that turned out to be our ship. So I thought, well, it's kind of tough when I get home, but by the same token, I'll never get a chance to see the Panama Canal again. So we went through the canal and up the East Coast and into Norfolk. So it turned out, like I saw a lot of stuff that growing up, I had no idea I'd get any further than the next biggest town, you know what I mean? And here I've been, that's how I felt about going to Japan. I wanted to get home, but I thought, golly, I have a chance to go to where these guys come from and see what that's like. And it was a big deal to me.
They finally discharged you from where?
From Quantico right here, Quantico, Virginia.
Did you call and tell your dad you were coming home?
Yeah, I wrote him a letter. And that's another sort of funny thing. I think I had 2 sea bags in that old suitcase I'll show you. An old paper suitcase I bought for $1.25, I think. And when I look at it today, I don't know how the hell I got it home. gee, 2 seat bags, I can hardly lift one. And I had 2 of them in that old suitcase there. But anyway, I got them home. So I come into Grand Central Station, New York. It's late at night, the last train has left for the island. So I gotta find a place to sleep. So I couldn't find anything, so I go to the YMCA, and the guy let me sleep on just a plain, like, table they put you on to give you a rub down, you know. I had my entire mustering out pain with me, and I was so tired, man, I climbed on that bed and went to sleep right there. And so the next day I forget when the train left, but I got in the green one where the train station was. I think it was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And there wasn't anybody at the station, nobody around. I thought, well, that's the way it is. So I lugged the stuff on home. We didn't live too far from the station, across the tracks and up a little bit. And nobody's home. And, damn, this is something. So I go over and visit with the neighbor for a while. Finally, I got tired of visiting with him. I go back home, and my stepmother was there. And she come in just about the time I walked around the back. And they weren't expecting me until later in the day or something like that, but I got there a little early, kind of. But it was good.
Did your dad throw a little party for you?
Yeah, we were up until, I think, practically all night. And this, I better skip that one. But my father had his eye out. And we had a few drinks and one thing and another. So he gets up to go to the bathroom, and I was going into the kitchen. So he reaches up and he takes his eye out and lays it on the kitchen table. He says, "Keep your eye on that, Stu." He said, "I'll be back in a minute." And I felt just like the floor come up and hit me. It really did. I felt a physical impact almost. I had no idea that he had his eye out. And but I noticed that the letters kind of stopped coming for a while. And I didn't know just why. And then finally one come through, and I noticed that the handwriting was real shaky. Probably a little worse than mine is now. And but anyway, in the meantime, he'd had this cancer in the eye, and they had to take the eye out.
We have a couple of minutes left. Can you describe to me how you view the military and how it changed your life?
I'll do the best I can. The military gave me a lot better discipline than I normally would have had, and more respect for other people and other people's property. It gave me a fear of God. I guess anybody who gets scared enough will believe. And and I'm still probably tight on taking care of what I have. I mean, if I got something, I hate to turn it loose until it's completely worn out. And I think a good health. We got a good drilling on keeping our teeth clean and taking baths and things like that, which don't sound very military, but yet it filtered through to me that these things are necessities, not just something you do when you get ready, you know.
Did the Marines prepare you for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think so. Like that old saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. Because at this age of 82, I've kind of lost a lot of my cold power, but when I see a Marine on the street or something like that, there's a comradeship I feel. The Marine Corps band used to come down and have a concert once a year over here at Chatham, and it always gave me a thrill to go to it and hear the hymn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shotwell.
No, my pleasure.